The research vessel Harmony's Edge drifted silently through the void between star systems, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with the gentle rhythms that marked it as a ship of the Zephyrian Collective. Inside its crystalline corridors, Dr. Veltar adjusted her sensory tendrils nervously as she reviewed the mission parameters for the 100th time. As the Collective's leading xenobiologist, she had been chosen to lead the first contact protocol with a newly discovered species that called themselves humans. The Collective had been monitoring radio transmissions from the third planet of a yellow star for nearly 50 rotations now. The signals painted a picture of a young civilization, barely past their first ventures into space. Perfect candidates for integration into the Collective's peaceful alliance of species. The humans seemed to possess the basic requirements: tool use, complex communication, and rudimentary space travel. What more could there be to evaluate? Captain Zixera floated into the observation chamber, her translucent form shimmering with the calm blue patterns that indicated contentment. Dr. Veltar, we're approaching the human system. Long-range sensors detect several artificial constructs orbiting their homeworld. Primitive, but functional. Veltar's assistant, a young Collective member named Rinda, pulled up holographic displays showing the human constructs. Fascinating, she chirped, her voice carrying the musical quality of her species. Look at how inefficient their designs are. They're still using chemical propulsion. And these metal hulls, so crude compared to our bioships. The observation was typical of their species. The Collective had long ago evolved beyond such barbaric technologies. Their ships grew rather than being built, their weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy, and their society had eliminated conflict through careful genetic and social engineering. War was a concept they studied only in historical contexts, viewing it as an unfortunate phase that primitive species pass through before achieving enlightenment. Set course for their largest orbital construct, Veltar ordered. We'll begin with standard first contact protocols. Peaceful approach, universal mathematical greetings, demonstration of superior but non-threatening technology. As they drew closer to what human databases would later identify as the International Space Station, Veltar felt the familiar excitement of discovering a new species. The Collective had encountered 47 different intelligent species in their expansion across the galaxy, and each had followed a predictable pattern. Initial fear, followed by curiosity, then eager acceptance of the Collective's guidance toward peaceful coexistence. The humans would be no different. Their transmissions spoke of conflicts, yes, but also of art, music, literature, and scientific advancement. They were clearly capable of reason and growth. A few generations under Collective guidance would help them overcome their primitive violent tendencies. Dr. Veltar, Rinda called out, her tone puzzled. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the human homeworld. Multiple sources, very high output. Veltar examined the readings with growing confusion. The energy signatures were massive, far beyond what a pre-space civilization should possess. Are these natural phenomena? Perhaps geothermal or solar collection? Captain Zixera's form darkened slightly with concern. Some of these signatures match theoretical models for weapons of mass destruction. But, surely not, the readings suggest yield potentials that could sterilize continents. Impossible, Veltar responded automatically. No species develops such weapons without first developing the wisdom to control them. It's evolutionary suicide. They must be power generation systems. The first sign that something was wrong came when their approach was detected. Instead of the wonder and curiosity they expected, the human response was immediate and coordinated. Alarm signals blazed across their monitoring equipment as every human military installation on the planet suddenly came alive. They're mobilizing, Rinda whispered, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with anxiety. Every armed satellite, every planetary defense grid, every naval vessel. They're treating our approach as a threat. Veltar remained calm. This had happened before with particularly paranoid species. Transmit the standard peaceful greeting. Mathematical sequences, universal constants, artistic patterns. Show them we come in peace. The human response was swift and unexpected. Instead of acknowledgement or attempted communication, massive energy weapons hidden on the dark side of their moon suddenly powered up. The readings were staggering. These weren't the crude projectile weapons they'd observed in human conflicts. These were directed energy systems that could core a battlecruiser. By the eternal light, Captain Zixera breathed, her form flashing between fear white and confusion purple. Those aren't planetary defense weapons. Those are ship killers. How did a pre-space civilization develop such technology? Before anyone could answer, space around them erupted with activity. Human vessels began emerging from concealment, their signatures masked by technology that shouldn't exist. These weren't the primitive chemical rockets they'd observed. These ships moved with fusion drives and carried weapons that made collective peacekeeping forces look like toys. The largest human vessel decloaked directly ahead of them, its angular hull bristling with weapon systems. Where collective ships curved and flowed like living things, this human creation was all sharp edges and brutal efficiency. It looked like it had been designed by someone who understood exactly how to kill other ships. Unknown vessel, came a transmission in perfect collective standard language, somehow translated with impossible accuracy. You have entered sovereign human space without permission. State your intentions or you will be fired upon. Veltar's tendrils curled with shock. They learned our language from our transmissions? In less than an hour? That's impossible processing speed for an organic species. And their tactical response, Zixera added, her voice tight with growing fear. Look at their positioning. They've surrounded us without us even noticing. These formations, they're not defensive. They're attack patterns. The human fleet had indeed surrounded them with mathematical precision. Each ship positioned to maximize overlapping fields of fire while minimizing their own exposure. It was a level of tactical thinking that spoke to countless generations of warfare, refined to an art form. Veltar activated their communication system, her voice carrying all the diplomatic warmth her species was known for. Greetings, humans. We are representatives of the Zephyrian Collective, a peaceful alliance of species. We come seeking dialogue and cultural exchange. There has been a misunderstanding. The response was immediate and chilling. We detected your scans of our defense systems. We monitored your communications. You classified us as primitive and spoke of bringing us under your guidance. Explain why we shouldn't interpret this as hostile intent. Rinda's patterns flashed pure terror white. They understood our internal communications? Our biological quantum encryption? That should be impossible for any species without centuries of study. But Veltar was focused on something else. In the human's response, she had detected something that made her blood run cold. The translator wasn't just converting words. It was conveying emotional undertones, and what she sensed from the humans wasn't fear or confusion. It was predatory calculation. We mean no harm, Veltar tried again. Perhaps we could meet in person? Send a small delegation to discuss negative. The human response cut through her words like a blade. You will submit to boarding and inspection, or you will leave our space immediately. You have 30 seconds to decide. Captain Zixera's form was now strobing with panic. Veltar, our sensors are detecting massive gravitational anomalies. They're powering up weapons that can manipulate spacetime itself. How is this possible? I don't know, Veltar whispered, watching the tactical display as more human ships continued to decloak around them. The numbers were staggering. This wasn't just a defense fleet. This was an armada that had been lying in wait, invisible to their most sophisticated sensors. 20 seconds, came the human voice, now carrying an undertone that every species in the galaxy would recognize, despite never having heard it before. It was the sound a predator made when it was deciding whether to kill or merely wound. Captain Rinda's voice was barely audible. I'm reading their biological signatures now. Their brainwave patterns, neural activity, biochemical responses. This isn't fear or territorial defense. What is it then? Zixera demanded. They're excited, Rinda whispered. Their neurotransmitter levels, their cardiovascular responses, they're enjoying this. They want us to make the wrong choice. Veltar stared at the tactical display, watching the human fleet position shift with fluid precision. Each movement was calculated, purposeful, efficient. And, suddenly, with horrible clarity, she understood what they were seeing. These weren't the transmissions of a primitive civilization struggling with their first steps into space. These were the communications of apex predators who had been deliberately broadcasting false signals, making themselves appear weak and vulnerable. The humans hadn't been developing space travel while the collective watched. They had been watching the collective. 10 seconds, came the human voice, and now Veltar could hear something else in it. Anticipation. These humans weren't afraid of a fight. They were hoping for one. The weapons systems of the surrounding human fleet were powering up, energy readings climbing to levels that defied everything the collective knew about physics and warfare. But what terrified Veltar most wasn't the raw power being displayed. It was the efficiency of it. Every weapon was positioned for maximum effect. Every ship was exactly where it needed to be for a devastating alpha strike. This wasn't a hurried defensive response. This was the execution of a plan that had been waiting for exactly this moment. "We'll submit to inspection," Veltar announced quickly, her voice breaking with terror she could no longer hide. "Smart choice," came the human response, and the predatory satisfaction in those two words made every member of the collective crew understand exactly what kind of species they had encountered. As human boarding craft launched toward their ship, Veltar realized with growing horror that everything they thought they knew about the galaxy was wrong. The humans weren't a primitive species needing guidance. They were hunters who had been patiently waiting for prey to come to them. And the collective, with all their peaceful wisdom and superior technology, had just walked directly into the trap. The human boarding craft attached to the Harmony's edge with mechanical precision that made Captain Zixera's bioluminescent form flicker with unease. Where collective docking procedures were gentle, organic processes that took time to establish proper bioneural connections, the humans simply clamped onto their hull with brutal efficiency and burned through. Dr. Veltar watched the cutting process on her sensors with growing disbelief. The human tools sliced through their bioarmor plating like it was ordinary metal, completely bypassing the organic defenses that had protected collective ships for millennia. "How are they cutting through our hull?" she whispered to herself. "Our bioarmor adapts to any attack." Rinda's voice was tight with fear as she monitored the intrusion. "They're using some kind of adaptive plasma system. It's analyzing our hull composition in real time and adjusting its frequency to counteract our defenses." "But, Dr. Veltar, the analysis speed required for this, they'd need processing power equivalent to our entire ship's biocomputer network." "Maybe they're using artificial intelligence?" Zixera suggested hopefully. "No organic brain could process data that quickly." The hope died as the first human stepped through their hull breach. The figure was shorter than any collective member, bipedal and compact, encased in armor that seemed to shift and adapt even as they watched. But it was the way the human moved that sent chills through the observation chamber. Every step was calculated, every movement precise. This wasn't the clumsy fumbling of a primitive species encountering superior technology. This was the fluid motion of an apex predator in its element. "I am Commander Sarah Chin of the Terran Defense Force," the human announced, her voice carrying clearly through their atmospheric systems. "By the authority granted to me under the Solar Collective Defense Charter, I am placing this vessel under inspection for potential hostile activity." More humans flowed through the breach behind her, and Veltar's tendrils curled with shock as she observed their coordination. They moved like a single organism, each member instinctively knowing where the others would be, covering angles and sectors with mathematical precision. She had studied predatory species before, but never anything like this. "Commander Chen," Veltar spoke through the ship's communication system, trying to maintain diplomatic protocols. "I am Dr. Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective. We are peaceful researchers. This inspection is unnecessary." The human's helmet retracted, revealing a face that made every collective member step backward. It wasn't the features themselves that were disturbing, though the forward-facing eyes and exposed teeth were unsettling enough. It was the intelligence burning behind those eyes. This was a mind that was analyzing, categorizing, and calculating threat assessments faster than their biocomputers could track. Dr. Veltar, Chen said, and the way she pronounced the name made it clear she had already analyzed their linguistic patterns, vocal structures, and communication methods. Your ship's approach vector, scanning patterns, and internal communications suggest intelligence gathering with potential hostile intent. You will cooperate with this inspection or face immediate detention. Intelligence gathering? Veltar's voice rose with indignation. We were conducting standard first contact protocols. This is how the collective has peacefully integrated 47 different species into our alliance. The human's expression changed subtly, and every collective member in the chamber felt their survival instincts scream warnings. It was the look a predator gave when it had just confirmed that its prey was exactly what it had hoped for. 47 species, Chen repeated slowly. Tell me, Dr. Veltar, how many of those species initially refused your integration? Veltar's tendrils curled with confusion. Refused? Why would they refuse? We offered technological advancement, peaceful coexistence, an end to conflict, and, if they had refused? Chen pressed, stepping closer. What would have happened then? The question hung in the air like poison. Veltar realized with growing horror that she didn't know the answer because the situation had never arisen. Every species the collective had encountered had eventually accepted their guidance. It had never occurred to her to wonder what would have happened if they hadn't. We. Veltar stammered, her patterns flickering with confusion. The question is meaningless. No rational species would refuse. You mean no species has been allowed to refuse? Chen interrupted, her voice carrying an edge that made the air itself seem dangerous. How interesting. Tell me about your standard first contact protocols, Dr. Veltar. In detail. As Veltar began explaining their procedures, she watched Chen's expression change from professional interest to something far more disturbing. The human was analyzing their methods with the focused attention of someone studying an enemy's tactics. So you approach primitive civilizations, Chen summarized when Veltar finished, demonstrate superior technology to establish dominance, then, offer integration under your guidance while surrounded by a fleet capable of enforcing compliance. And, you call this peaceful? It is peaceful. Veltar protested. We've never had to use force because every species recognizes the benefits of joining us. Or because they recognized they had no choice, Chen said softly. Tell me, Dr. Veltar, what happened to the species that weren't suitable for integration? Again, the question hit like a physical blow. Veltar's memories raced through the collective's expansion, and she realized with growing unease that she had never wondered about the species they had encountered who weren't suitable for membership. The ones who were too aggressive, too independent, too different. That information isn't. Veltar's voice trailed off as she saw Chen's expression. They disappeared, didn't they? The human said. Marked as hostile, probably. Eliminated for the greater good. Wiped out by your superior technology and overwhelming force, while you told yourselves it was necessary for galactic peace. Rinda made a small sound of distress. Commander Chen, surely you're not suggesting the collective would commit genocide? I'm not suggesting anything, Chen replied, her voice cold as space itself. I'm stating observable facts based on your own admission. 47 species integrated, 0 refused, and convenient silence about what happened to anyone who didn't fit your definition of suitable. The accusation hung in the air like a death sentence. Veltar wanted to deny it, to protest that the collective would never engage in such barbaric actions. But the memories were surfacing now, fragments of reports and discussions that she had never questioned before. Species classified as unsuitable for peaceful integration. Worlds marked as sterilized for ecological protection. Systems designated as quarantine zones pending future evaluation. You're wrong, Veltar whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. The collective preserves life, protects the weak, maintains peace, by eliminating anything that threatens your definition of peace, Chen finished. How many species have you encountered that refuse to submit, Dr. Veltar? How many civilizations have you classified as hostile simply because they wouldn't accept your dominance? The humans' words cut through Veltar's worldview like the plasma torches that had sliced through their hull. Everything she had believed about the collective, about their noble mission of peaceful expansion, was crumbling under the weight of questions she had never thought to ask. "Why are you doing this?" Veltar asked desperately. "Why are you making us question everything we believe?" Chen's expression shifted again, and now Veltar could see something that terrified her more than anger or aggression. The human looked disappointed, like a teacher whose student had failed to grasp an important lesson. "Because, Dr. Veltar, you came here expecting to find another primitive species to absorb into your collective. Another weak civilization to bring under your protection and control. You approached us the same way you've approached 47 others, with the absolute certainty that we would submit to your superior wisdom and technology." The human moved closer, and Veltar could smell something on her that no collective member had ever encountered before. It was the scent of a species that had never been prey, that had climbed to the top of their world's food chain through cunning, cooperation, and controlled violence. "But we're not like the others," Chen continued. "We're not a peaceful species that developed beyond conflict. We're a species that developed because of conflict. Every human alive today is the descendant of predators who survived by being better at violence than anything else they encountered." Around the chamber, Chen's team had taken positions that turned the room into a perfect killing field. They moved with the unconscious efficiency of pack hunters, covering every angle and exit without apparently thinking about it. It was instinctive, as natural as breathing. "You see, Dr. Veltar," Chen said, her voice taking on the patient tone of someone explaining something obvious to a child, "you made a critical error in your assessment of human civilization. You listened to our communications and assumed we were like every other species you've encountered. You thought our conflicts were a sign of primitiveness, something we would grow out of with proper guidance." The human smile was sharp enough to cut. "But our conflicts aren't a bug in our programming. They're a feature. We didn't develop technology to explore the stars or seek peaceful contact with other species. We developed it to make ourselves better at war." Veltar's patterns were now flashing pure terror white as the implications crashed over her. "You're saying humans are inherently violent? That you can't be reasoned with?" "Oh, we can be reasoned with," Chen replied, her tone almost amused. "We're quite reasonable, actually. But here's what your collective never understood about species like us: we negotiate from a position of strength. Always." The human gestured toward the breach in their hull, where more figures were visible in the docking tube. "Every human ship in this system is crewed by individuals who grew up studying the history of conflict. Who learn tactics and strategy the way your people learn philosophy and art. Who understand that the universe is full of predators, and the only way to survive is to be the apex predator." Chen's next words fell into the chamber like stones into still water, sending ripples of terror through every collective member present. "We've been watching you for 50 rotations, Dr. Veltar. We've monitored your expansion, studied your methods, analyzed your technology. We know about the species you've absorbed and the ones that simply disappeared. We've been preparing for the day you would come for us." The human's eyes locked onto Veltar's, and in them she saw the truth that would haunt her for the rest of her existence. "And now you're here," Chen said softly, "expecting us to submit like all the others. But we're not going to submit, Dr. Veltar. We're going to do something no species in your collective has ever done before." Veltar could barely form the words. "What?" Commander Chen's smile was the coldest thing in the universe. "We're going to hunt you." The words hung in the air like a death sentence, and Dr. Veltar felt something inside her fundamental understanding of the universe crack and shatter. Hunt them? The concept was so alien, so impossible, that her bioluminescent patterns flickered wildly as her mind struggled to process it. "You can't be serious," she whispered, her voice barely audible through her species' natural harmonic communication. "Hunting other sentient species it's barbaric. It's evolutionary suicide. No intelligent civilization engages in interstellar warfare." Commander Chen's expression didn't change, but several of her team members exchanged glances that somehow managed to convey volumes of information without words. It was another example of their unnerving coordination, their ability to function as a unified predatory unit while maintaining individual intelligence. Dr. Veltar, Chen said, her voice carrying the patience of someone explaining basic facts to a child, may I access your database of historical records? I'd like to show you something. Before Veltar could respond, the chamber's biodisplays activated automatically. She stared in shock as data streams flowed across the organic monitors, information being accessed and processed at speeds that should have been impossible for anyone not directly interfaced with their systems. How are you doing that? Captain Zixera demanded, her form strobing with alarm colors. Our biocomputers are quantum encrypted with organic neural pathways. No external system should be able to. Your encryption was broken about 15 minutes after we started monitoring your communications 50 rotations ago, Chen replied absently, her attention focused on the data flowing across the displays. Ah, here we are. Your historical records of first contact situations. The display shifted, showing detailed records of the collective's expansion across the galaxy. Species after species appeared on the screens, their technological levels, social structures, and eventual integration into the collective documented with meticulous care. Interesting reading, Chen commented as the data scrolled past. The Velnari, peaceful aquatic civilization, integrated after demonstration of superior terraforming technology. The Kithera, nomadic traders, joined after being shown the economic benefits of collective membership. The Zanri, warrior culture, integrated after. Chen paused, her expression growing cold. After their homeworld suffered a mysterious plague that decimated their population, making resistance impossible. Veltar's tendrils curled with growing unease. The Zanri plague was a natural phenomenon. A tragic evolutionary bottleneck that was caused by a bioweapon specifically designed to target their unique genetic markers, Chen finished, reading directly from the collective's own classified files. Deployed by your peaceful integration fleet after they refused 3 separate offers of membership. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Rinda made a small sound of distress as more records flowed across the displays, each one revealing another species that had suffered mysterious catastrophes after refusing collective membership. The Korath Empire, extinct due to stellar engineering accidents that caused their sun to go supernova. The free worlds of Andromache, wiped out by a rogue AI that somehow gained access to their defense networks. The Crimson Fleet, eliminated when their ships suffered simultaneous reactor failures across their entire territory. Chen turned to face Veltar directly, and the weight of her gaze felt like a physical pressure. 47 successful integrations, Dr. Veltar. And 23 species that mysteriously went extinct rather than join your peaceful alliance. Would you like me to calculate the statistical probability of that many coincidental disasters? Veltar's world was collapsing around her. Everything she had believed about the collective, about their noble mission of peace and enlightenment, was being systematically destroyed by their own records. I didn't know, she whispered. The Integration Department never told us about. The Integration Department reports directly to the Collective Council, Chen interrupted. Which means this policy of genocide comes from the highest levels of your government. Your entire civilization is built on the systematic elimination of anyone who refuses to submit to your authority. The human's voice carried no emotion now, just cold factual analysis. You approach primitive civilizations, offer them protection and advancement, and, if they refuse, you destroy them utterly. Then, you classify the survivors as primitive species showing early signs of intelligent development and start the process over again. Captain Zixera's form had gone completely transparent with shock. Commander Chen, surely you're not suggesting that the entire collective leadership is engaged in a conspiracy to commit genocide? Chen's laugh was like ice cracking. I'm not suggesting anything, Captain. I'm reading it directly from your own files. The collective has been systematically eliminating any species with the independence to refuse their dominance for over 3,000 rotations. You're not a peaceful alliance of evolved civilizations. You're a totalitarian empire that's very good at public relations. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Veltar found herself accessing her own memories, searching for contradictory evidence, but every fragment she examined only confirmed what Chen was showing them. The mysterious disappearances, the classified missions, the systems marked as uninhabitable due to natural disasters. But, we've brought peace to the galaxy, Veltar protested desperately. We've ended wars, eliminated conflict, created a stable civilization that spans dozens of star systems. You've created a graveyard, Chen said flatly. A galaxy where the only species left alive are the ones that submitted to your control. You call it peace, but it's really just the silence of extinction. Rinda was trembling now, her bioluminescence flickering erratically. If this is true, if the collective really has been doing these things, then what does that make us? What are we? Chen's expression softened slightly, and, for a moment, she looked almost sympathetic. You're sheep, Rinda. Well-meaning, intelligent sheep who were raised by wolves and told they were shepherds. You genuinely believe you're bringing peace and enlightenment to the galaxy because that's what your leadership wanted you to believe. The human gestured toward the data still flowing across their displays. But, here's what your leaders never told you: peace imposed through extinction isn't peace. It's just death wearing a prettier mask. Chen moved to the center of the chamber, and her team shifted positions with fluid precision to maintain their tactical advantage. The movement was unconscious, instinctive, a perfect example of predatory coordination that no amount of evolution seemed able to eliminate. Now, Dr. Veltar, let me explain why humanity will never join your collective, and why we represent something your species has never encountered before. The human's voice took on a lecturing tone, but underneath it was steel. Humans evolved on a world where survival required constant adaptation. We faced ice ages, volcanic catastrophes, disease, predation, and competition from other intelligent species. We didn't just develop technology to solve problems, we developed it to survive in a hostile universe. Chen gestured toward her team, and Veltar noticed for the first time that no two humans looked exactly alike. Their armor, their weapons, even their individual movement patterns showed subtle variations. Every human alive today carries the genetic legacy of survivors. We're not a uniform species that developed beyond conflict like yours. We're a diverse species that learned to cooperate precisely because conflict taught us the value of unity. The implications were staggering. A species that had evolved for warfare but learned to channel that aggression into cooperation? It defied everything the collective understood about social evolution. More importantly, Chen continued, humans developed in isolation. We had no benevolent elder species to guide us, no superior civilization to show us the path to enlightenment. Every advancement we made ourselves. Every problem we solved through our own ingenuity and determination. The human's eyes locked onto Veltar's again, and this time she saw something that made her blood freeze. Pride. Not the simple satisfaction of a predator with successful prey, but the deep, unshakable pride of a species that had earned its place in the universe through its own efforts. Do you understand what that means, Dr. Veltar? It means we don't need your guidance. We don't want your protection. And we sure as hell don't fear your threats. Chen activated a holographic display that showed the tactical situation around their ship. Human vessels had completely surrounded them, but now Veltar could see the true scope of the trap. The fleet wasn't just large, it was massive. Hundreds of ships in perfect formation, each one radiating energy signatures that dwarfed anything the collective could deploy. You came here expecting to find another primitive species to absorb, Chen said, her voice carrying quiet satisfaction. Instead, you found a species that's been preparing for this encounter for 50 rotations. We know your ship designs, your weapon capabilities, your tactical doctrines. We've studied every aspect of your civilization and developed specific countermeasures for each one. The display shifted, showing detailed schematics of collective ship designs with glowing red indicators marking critical vulnerabilities. Your bioships are impressive, but they have weaknesses that a species raised on warfare can exploit. Your quantum encryption is sophisticated, but it's based on biological patterns that follow predictable rules. Your philosophy of non-violence is admirable, but it's also your greatest tactical weakness. Veltar stared at the display in horror. Every ship class in the collective fleet was represented, every system analyzed, every weakness catalogued. You've been planning to attack us this entire time? Attack? Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. Dr. Veltar, we haven't attacked anyone. You came into our space, scanned our defenses, and prepared to deliver an ultimatum about joining your collective. We simply responded appropriately. The human gestured toward the breach in their hull. In fact, we've been remarkably restrained. A less civilized species might have simply destroyed your ship the moment you entered our territory. Instead, we've given you a chance to learn the truth about your own civilization. Captain Zixera had been silent throughout the exchange, but now she spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. What do you want from us? Chen's expression became predatory again, and Veltar realized they were about to learn exactly what it meant to be hunted by humanity. Simple, Captain. You're going to return to the collective leadership with a message. Tell them that humanity knows what they've been doing. Tell them we have complete records of every genocide, every extinction, every species they've eliminated in the name of peace. The human's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more threat than any shout. And tell them that we're coming. Veltar's patterns flashed pure terror as the implications hit her. You're declaring war on the entire collective? That's suicide. We have 47 member species, thousands of ships, technology you can't possibly match, Chen corrected quietly. You had 47 member species. But, how many of them joined willingly, and how many submitted because they had no choice? How many would remain loyal if they learned the truth about their peaceful protectors? The question hung in the air like poison. Veltar thought about the species she had studied, the cultures that had seemed oddly subdued after their integration, the civilizations that had lost their individual characteristics after joining the collective. You're going to tear apart the galaxy, she whispered. Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. No, Dr. Veltar. We're going to free it.